What's up, guys? I'm Coach Justin, and here to do some basics for you guys. Um, the curriculum I'm using is rooted in the four elements, and today what I want to show you is would be considered a water escape from the bottom, a air regard from the bottom, and a Papercutter choke, and what your thoughts should be in each of those positions. So here's my dummy. Fortunately, I don't have anybody to practice with today. That will be off and on, but this guy's name's Bob. He does an okay job of being my dummy. And I built in some things for him, so he's a little bit better. But like I said, the first escape I want to show you is what I would consider a water escape. So I'm going to show you from one side, and then I'll show you from the other side. So when your opponent is on top of you, the first thing you have to remember is where to keep your arms, because his leg outside here, which you can't see right now, but it's usually up pretty high, ideally even so much so that my arm's like way up here on his back. I don't have any room to come down against him like this. All right. But attacking this arm can be difficult when it's belly to belly. But attacking this arm can be pretty easy if you don't know what to do with it. All right. If I try to come up here, there's Americana arm locks. If I keep this too loose or try to go underneath, there's Kimuras that can come from here. So the two options you have, in my opinion, is either to grab the arm, which is my personal favorite, or you can grab some material and pin your arm to the mat like this. Now, the reason why I like the arm grab for most of my moves is because if I have good control of his arm like this, then when he tries to pull his arm out to attack with it, he can't. And also a move that a lot of times people will do is they'll try to pick you up from here. And when they start to pick you up using that arm, it's real easy to use that space to escape, because they want you kind of up on your side in order to do a spinning arm bar. So if I was turned into him like this, then a spinning arm bar would be pretty easy. But since I'm flat on my back, it makes it a lot more difficult. So whenever I'm on the bottom, I always want to remember to do either this move here, and I pinch the arm down. So it's hug around the arm. I don't have to grab anything with this hand because that's enough, especially with the gi, to grip down on, and I pinch the arm down, and it's just right above the elbow like this. All right. And the second thing is this arm here. So this arm here is always going to be, this is always worst case scenario. If you've already created your frame down inside, that's great. So when I do this, this is called the ghost escape, and it's what I would consider a water technique, because I'm staying connected to my opponent and I am moving kind of with him. So what I'm doing is I'm going to take this arm and I'm going to come down in here, right? And this is another reason why I like to do this, because there's going to be some chokes that are possible if I don't have control of this arm, because my next move is to go from here up underneath and get my arm out to the other side. All right, so I'm here stuck up high. Now, when somebody's real in tight on me as well, sometimes it's hard to get this elbow down, especially if you have longer arms, like the top half of the arms, the humerus area. So what I'll usually do is I'll just take a little bit of a step to the side like this, and then I'll do a little bit of a bump just to get myself over. So I go like this. Now that my hip's over, that creates enough space between me and my opponent that I can get this arm inside. So now this arm's inside, and once the arm's inside, that's when the arm comes underneath, and now we're here. All right. So another reason why I like to hold on to this arm, because one of the defenses to this move is they bring their arm over to the other side. All right. And that blocks my hip. If I've got to control this arm like this, they can't do that. All right. So here's where the real technical aspect of this comes in. All the stuff I've said so far should just be basic side control defense and ideology. All right. Especially if you've got somebody on top of you like this. It's completely different if they're in side control and they're facing away from you. There's a completely different mindset if they're away from you, like if they're going to punch you, or if they're going to switch to the sit out side. But if you've got a belly to belly, this is my go-to, or one of my go-tos. So again, I create that space, get my arm to the other side. Now, this, like I said, this is the only part that requires a little extra motion. You're gonna turn your legs towards your opponent, right? And then what you're gonna do is you're going to rock your legs up and over and create this motion here. And as you do that, you're also going to lift your opponent up. And so what's going to happen is, it's not even lift your opponent up, because you're not, like, one of the ideas that you need to remember consistently with jiu-jitsu is you can never, unless you're very strong and your opponent is a lot smaller than you, it's very difficult to push your opponent off of you. It's much easier to move yourself underneath your opponent. That's why we talk about body movements. So in this case, what I'm doing is I'm actually moving myself underneath my opponent. So again, I'm here, I bring my legs over, and then when I swing, I push. So it's gonna look like this. So I'm gonna go here, and I'm gonna come out from underneath, just like that. So notice that Bob stayed in the same spot, and I came out from underneath. Okay, now I'm on top, turtle position, and I'm in the attacking headlock position, and I can go right to a bunch of other moves. Okay, so one more time as a walkthrough. So Bob's on top of me, and it's a mistake to do this with your arm, because what he's going to do is he's going to pick my arm up and do an inverted arm bar. All right, so that's a mistake. Never want to do that. Grabbing the head, not necessarily a mistake. Depends on your intention, but this still leaves this free here. So again, I like to grab the arm, and I just like to tuck the elbow down against the arm to hold it in place. All right, then I take this hand, and I gotta bump my hips over and get my arm down at the same time. Then once my arm's down, I snake my arm underneath to get my hand to the other side. Then I'm going to turn my hips here, rainbow myself over, and come out on top. All right, then from here, I can sit up to my knees and come up into that, and then maybe even attack into the back, if that's what your attack specialty is. That's one of the ways. Okay, so that's your water technique, and you can kind of see why it is. All right, the next technique is going to be an air technique. All right, so the air technique, air is like breathing. So anytime that you have a situation where you're creating space and then taking space away, that's going to be your air techniques. And actually, before I do that, I wanted to change sides so you could see from the other position, other situation, or direction, kind of what this looks like, since you don't get to see that. So I'll take Bob and throw him over here. So once again, and this would be if Bob could get his leg up near my head, real high. He's attacking here, real good. All right. And so again, grasping the arm, I'm going to bump a little bit to get my arm inside. And then I'm going to use that to get this space. And once I'm here, I'm just to the other side, take my feet, come over here. I'm going to throw and turn and come up. And then once I'm here, come up to my knees. All right. We call that the ghost escape. Okay. So now you've seen it from both sides. If you have any questions, let me know. But we're going to go to the air escape. And this is your basic side control escape. All right. So your opponent is on you like he was before. And maybe you're not a fan of coming on top like that. Maybe you want to attack from the guard. Butterfly guard, half guard, full guard, whatever you end up with your specialty, wherever you want to go. So again, you're going to hug the body, hug the arm, and tuck. All right, and this works both gi and no gi. So this is how I usually go, both gi and no gi. Hug the arm and tuck. Again, bump, create the space, arm inside. All right, now the arm's inside to create the little bit of space at the hips. You can actually use that to like push them away. But if you get a really big, strong guy on you, it's going to be real hard, even with that in there. So what you're going to do is you're going to do the bridge and turn in, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm going to create space, and then I'm going to take it away. All right, step one, create space. Step two, go into that space, all right? As a big guy, this isn't necessarily a move that I utilize just because the space is hard for me to create. But it is something that is always available if you were like fighting someone who didn't know what they were doing, okay? So again, the first step is once you're here, you're going to do that little bump and get your arm inside. Now you got your arm inside, all right? So your next step here is you need to get this hand on the inside to create a frame, all right? You could try to do it with the arm in, but then the space you want to create is actually near your hips, and holding him down keeps that space in between. So what I'll usually do here is I'll try to create sort of a distraction by taking this hand and actually putting it in the armpit of this one. And most of the time your opponent's hugging this real tight anyway, so there is some space right here in between the armpit and the body. And so I'll go inside like this and create that space. And then once that space is created, now I can sort of push him away a little bit, create just a tiny bit of space so that I can take this hand and I can snake it in. Now I don't want to bring my hand out like this, because again, if I bring my hand out like this, he's going to grab it no matter where this hand is, and he's going to Americana or key lock me. So what you're actually going to do is you're going to go from here and you're going to come inside like that. Unless they're tucking really, really hard right here, which, you know, even if they are, you can use the invisible key. So if they're here and you're holding and you want to get in and they're not going to let you, the invisible key is just like this. And you go up in and you invisible key up into underneath their neck. And you just keep invisible and keying. You're not too worried about attacks here, because the minute they start to posture up, maybe to start grabbing this hand, that's when you do get your position, which is you want collar, thumb inside like this. All right, this is position one, or you want over the collar at near the shoulder like this. So whichever you can get to. If you start doing invisible key and you get past the collar, just move to the shoulder and you'll be fine, because now your forearm's in the way. There's a reason why you don't want to try to get no hand up near their neck. Like everybody thinks, okay, if I go here on their shoulder, like shoulder chest area, right in here, I'm fine. Except there's a sneaky, or even a push on their face like this. Except there's a sneaky Americana, and this is something I like to do when people do this to me. So I'll sit out like this, right? Then I'll take this hand, this top hand here, grab the opponent's hand underneath, like even just like right underneath the wrist. So I just come underneath, down like this, grab that wrist, and then when I come back down, boom, I'm right in Americana. So you never want to try to push your opponent away like flat like this. You always want to go forearm, either thumb inside the collar if you can get that. That's a pretty strong grip, because once it's in there, you do risk the potential for wrist locks at the higher level, just because your hand's now stuck inside there, and your opponent might know, like, maybe to drive this down or something. Or my preference of framing is over the shoulder, and grab the gi like this. Now you can use that gi and your forearm as an anchor to push them away. Okay, so again, we're here, right? Make your little bump, boom, boom, arm inside. I'm not going to be able to sneak this in because they're real tight. Or maybe they're not tight. They like lift their head up because they're going to try to sit up or something. And then I can go right inside. Remember, never go out. Always go in like this. And then once I'm here, I'm going to grab the shoulder. Shoulders grabbed, arms grabbed. All right, now we're in a good position. Now we're in a framed position. This is one of the best positions you can be in because there's a couple framing things we could do here. But again, you know, if your opponent's strong, it can definitely be difficult. So create the space. Step one, create the space. So how do I create the space? What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move my feet over away from my opponent's center of mass, which is right here. Go like this, right? And then I'm going to bridge onto my right shoulder into my opponent. Once I've done that, my butt should come up off the floor, and my butt's going to go back towards the camera. And then once it's towards the camera, then I should have created enough space between me and my opponent that I can get a knee inside, a foot inside, something like that. And so this works real well. Basic, like I said, basic jiu-jitsu, basic understandings. Okay, so we're here, and I'm here, and in fact, you know, the closer I am to start, the better. So that way, when I come out, I can bridge. He's gonna stay with me. My butt goes back. Now I've created a lot of space, and I can either come knee inside like this, or I can come foot inside like this, and hips. You can do hip. You can do inside the butterfly. But once I get here, then I can come around. And now I'm back to butterfly, regular guard. I can regain guard and whatnot. Worst case scenario, I got a foot inside and I'm back to half guard, and we can use half guard transition techniques from here. And since I'm in here like this, he doesn't officially have an underhook on me, so I can actually like make adjustments that way. Okay, so that one more time from this position, and then I'll turn and do it another time from the other position. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to go hug this arm, going to bump to get this arm down, then I'm going to try to create space. If I can't get in here where I want to be, then I'm going to use this hand to start to open that up a little bit, get my hand inside here. And once I'm in here, creating a frame to sort of get him to get the space. Then I'm going to use the key, go through, grab this, grab the shoulder, grabbing the shoulder material. This hand goes back in here, all right? And again, you don't want to go full palm on here because if you go full palm on the waist, like this, then there's ways to roll over your wrist with your hand against the mat, and that can wrist lock you too. So what we want to do is we want on kind of on the outside of the waist, because if your guy's tight enough, this elbow should be enough to create enough space for you to bump off of. Okay, so we're inside. Remember, feet go away from your opponent. Feet go away. All right. Then you bridge to get your butt off the ground on your right shoulder, and you're gonna push your butt back like this. All right. Then this foot or this foot. This is where you kind of play around with the one you like. I would be inclined to go top foot in, because I've done this a lot of times where the bottom leg goes in, but I can't get my knee up high enough. So the opponent pushes the knee away and comes back into me. Because this is a timing thing. If I don't do this right, if I don't do this timing right, he's easily going to come in. If I just stood here like this, he could come back into me real easy. So I'm going to make this frame, and I'm going to put the top foot in. And once the top foot's in, even just on the hip, then I should be able to come around and regain guard. Okay? Now I'll show you from the other side, just so you can see both sides. Move myself, not the dummy. That's better. Okay. So again, from this side, we're going to assume that we have tight side control, and we're here like so. Got that arm wrapped over. This arm's stuck, so we go bump, arm inside. This guy's being tight here. Can't get this hand inside. Remember, always under, never over. So I try, and he's got his head down. So I go back to the control. This hand goes underneath this and start to push him away. Once he's pushed away, then it can go underneath or key inside, come across and grab that shoulder, right? And in all honesty, if both your hands are here, this is a pretty good position too, because you're pushing them away from you this way. So you could do two hands. This is really important if they've got real good like hips, like they can keep their hips real tight up against you. But this is good control of the upper body if you go two on the shoulder like this. And you can, and again, do the same thing. So it's over, you're gonna bridge, and then you're gonna shoot your butt back. And then, like I said, you can go either leg inside to regain your guard. I'm gonna go top leg in first. And then once I get my top leg in, then I can go other leg in, like that. Okay, that's how we're gonna regain guard from bottom position. And that is one of the air techniques. Okay. Now, the last thing I want to show you is the bread cutter choke. Sorry, I can't see. Because I believe it's one of the trifecta side control powerful chokes that you can do. And you need to know that it's there for two reasons. One, so you can try working it into your game. But for two, so you can defend against it. Because no matter how many times you show a submission, you should always know how to defend against it. Okay? So, the bread cutter choke. Sorry, the paper cutter choke. All right, we're in that position. We're here, and we're here. Okay? Now, this won't necessarily work if your opponent is holding the arm like I held the arm. But if they are being lax with their basics, maybe because they've been doing this long enough that they don't feel like they don't need to hold on to that anymore, they can defend against submissions, which is possible, or they don't know any better. That's another thing. This works. This is a really good choke for. I really like this choke because it doesn't require anything like super special other than the move that it entails itself. Okay, and here's what I mean. The setup, the first position of the setup is grabbing the collar with the hand over the head. All right, so it doesn't matter if this guy gets his frame in here. That's irrelevant. What's relevant is your hand goes inside the collar like this. Okay, so I'm here, and this is just standard side control, but instead of just holding like a gable grip, you're actually going to create a lapel grip like this. All right, so that's step one. So I've come up underneath, grab the lapel. Now I've got my lapel grip. Okay. Now step two is I'm going to take this hand and I'm going to bring it inside like so, but I'm not going to bring it too high. I'm actually just going to bring it kind of low like this. And I'm going to use that to push down on my opponent's stomach. So I'm going to use my forearm and elbow to push down on my opponent's stomach. And there's two reasons why I do this. Okay, reason number one I'm pinning my opponent's hips to the ground. It's very hard for him to move if his hips are pinned to the ground. But number two, I'm also using this to help lift his head up, because what I want to do is I want to actually swing this around and come across like this. All right, this is why they call it a paper cutter choke, because you know the paper cutters we used to have in school that the teachers wouldn't let us use until we were like, 11 or 12. So I'm pulling this tight, and then I'm going to come down and come across the throat like this. All right, and that's going to make our choke. Our choke always needs a triangle, right? So triangle piece number one is going to be the lapel here. Triangle piece number two is going to be the lapel here, and then triangle piece number three is going to be my forearm. Okay, so one more time. We're here, right? Then I'm going to grab this inside with my thumb, like this. All right, then my next step is to snake this inside. And like I said, if you snake it too high, they're going to know something's up. But if you snake it low enough, this might actually just feel like a separate move. So while they're busy dealing with your elbow, right? Most people would reach up with this elbow and try to push that elbow off. Once they do that, you swing this over, and then you press down, So you're cutting paper. All right. Now, how do you deal with this? How do you deal with this choke? All right. You try that a few times with somebody if you can. Pause the video and try that a few times with somebody you can. But how do you deal with this if you're on the other side of the choke? All right. So the first thing I've found is that one of the main problems that we have because of this is that grip on the lapel down here. So if I'm doing standard side control and I grab that lapel, that's a strong grip, right? There's not a whole lot you can do about that, right? But there are things that you can do about that. And what you should be looking to do is try to get that grip off, okay? And there are only a couple ways that I can think of to remove that grip, and it is being a little bit more assertive than your opponent. If your opponent thinks you're going to do something with that arm, or if you're doing something that doesn't require that, what I might even consider if they had that grip is giving them the bump that they get the arm over the head before they get this lapel in, and then turning into your opponent. Because what's going to happen is they're going to be here like this, trying to squeeze you down, and they don't have this pressure and this pressure here, so you turn into them, and that takes the pressure off of you. So there's no choke here, okay? The second part that you can do to keep the choke from happening is if you're not grabbing onto the arm like you should be, like that should be your first thing, that should be your first defense. I'm grabbing the arm, so they can't reach up to grab the lapel, right? So if we're here, right, and your arm's like this, how am I supposed to get it out to grab the lapel? And now I'm actually creating space to go for that, and you can create your frames underneath while I'm trying to go for this, and you're out before I have a chance to finish, okay? Now, that's the one, but if you forget to grab the arm and this is loose and like you're being too thoughtful and stuff, and you see this arm and it starts to come down, this is the arm, this is the hand you should worry about. This is the hand you can control because both your arms are here, right? So you should be fighting this hand right here. Now, that doesn't mean that that it won't lead to other chokes, because there's actually a string of chokes you can do from here. The first one being once you get this here, if you block this and I'm down here, then I can do a baseball bat choke. So I could switch from here to here. So if I was here like this and I go for this and you stop me, then I could go inside for this, and this is your baseball bat choke, right? This is another one you have to kind of worry about. And again, it all depends on where your frames are at and where your defenses are, okay? So if I'm starting to go in here, you block me, you keep me from, like you grab my hands to keep me from grabbing that. And then I start to go in here and you keep me from grabbing that. Or one of the things that can happen is you go for this other move. That also can be the ghost escape, can also be another way to defend against this. So those are all thoughts that you have to have when you're fighting in the gi, because the chokes, when you find somebody who's all about the chokes, that is a completely different set of defenses altogether. Okay, but mainly what I've found is that a lot of times just putting your hands in the way can defend you from lots of chokes. And it's not an all-purpose ending, but like the main reason why chokes work is because you get your forearm dug into your opponent. So if you can block the dig using your hands or using your own arms or whatever, then you can usually defend those kinds of chokes. It doesn't always work, like I said, especially when you got something really good, you know, like a certain cross-collar choke. I don't think a baseball bat choke would completely do that over, but you also have to remember where your head is. So where your head is in conjunction. So I'm not going to go over the baseball bat choke, but I'm going to, you know, like I said, if I'm here, right, your first defense, even if I grab this collar, is grabbing the arm. That should be defense number one. All right, defense number two then is if somehow I start to come up, I have to make space to get my hand inside here. So when I do that, you grab my hand and you keep me from doing that. And you know what's great about this position too is that even though this hand's sort of pinning you down, my arm's over here, you should be able to push my arm off. And if you can get my arm off, even with my hand right here, if I don't have a good control here, you can climb up my back. You can reach around and grab my back and climb up my back. So that's why this is important to this choke, is to keep my arm here, right? If I don't keep my arm here, if I keep it, do this with it, you're going to hip out to the side and then come up and take my back. So that's another thing you can think about. Instead of worrying about just this grip here, when I go here, push this arm before I have a chance to go down, before your opponent has a chance to come down here, push this arm off to the side. Now, if you reach around my back and grab my gi, we're kind of in a stalemate till one of us tries to move. Now, I would again say the advantage goes to the guy on top, but at least you're not being choked. So to recap the day, we have the ghost escape, which is going to be your water move of the day. We have the bridge and turn in, which gets you back to guard. And then we have the bread cutter choke and its defenses. So when you, what I'm going to do is I'll say this at the end of everything. There will be a link to a Google Doc on this video, and it will just sort of, it's sort of like a journal entry. So if you watch this video and you do the practice, you practice the moves, and you can take notes on them, and maybe even try to see what the defenses would be. A lot of times the defense is the same for a lot of these moves, which is kind of adjusting yourself around, being more fluid, being the top person, not really holding on. But that's a little bit more advanced side control, in my opinion. But yeah, so use that journal entry as a template to fill out and fill in the details, like notes and things like that, that you have about the moves. And when you've gone through the whole sequence one time, we'll talk and see and get a better explanation of how that all affects you. Okay. All right. Thanks for watching, guys.